It's Jennifer J. Welcome back. I'm so glad you joined us again. I'm going to go back real quick. Oh, let me set my timer. I'm going to go back real quick to last Thursday. We were talking about the Potter's house and Gideon. And he was exhausted, but he still said yes, and he still kept pressing forward. I don't know if you guys remember talking about Judges 8:4, exhausted but still in pursuit. And I left just a little bit out on that, but I didn't intend to, so I apologize. But I wanted to be sure and mention it because it was good stuff, so I didn't want to just forget about it. So something else he said at the very end of that sermon was, go in the strength that you have and go do what God called you to do. And that part really spoke to me. That was one of the most important things of the sermon, because I wasn't supposed to go in my own strength, but I was supposed to go and do what he told me to do. And then he said also, Gideon was exhausted from his yes, but he still kept pursuing. And he said, don't let your yes depend on your answers. And he was talking about asking God questions. So it's okay to ask God questions. God already knows what you're thinking. He knows what you're concerned about. And go ahead and ask the questions, but don't let your yes be dependent on the answers. So sometimes you may not feel like you got an answer, but if you know that he called you to do something, you still need to do it. So I hope that makes sense. After that, the next couple days after that, I was really struggling. I know that I've told you guys before that March was going to be really hard for me. God had already forewarned me back in February that March was going to be difficult, and I had been praying about it. So I can't imagine how hard it would have been if I hadn't have prayed about it. But it was really hard, and I did have a couple people contact me in the next couple days after that sermon, telling me how this presentation was speaking to them and changing their prayer life and their walk with God, and that's awesome. I'm glad God's using it. That encouragement was very timely, because I was feeling just really, I don't know if it's grief. I know that in one of the T.D. Jakes sermons early on, I had mentioned that he said you'd suffer grief, and I really think that's what I was going through. I was grieving the loss of my house and my comfort zone and my kids and my grandkids and all those things, and I was grieving, and relationships, and friendships that were changed now because I was here, and my stomach was in knots, you guys. It was just, felt like it was being wrung out, and like I was physically feeling a heaviness on my chest and gut-wrenching knots in my stomach, and actually went to the doctor because I was feeling so, I couldn't eat. I mean, I really was feeling physical ailments from just the grief of the move and the changes, and I was still trusting God. I still completely knew that he told me to come here. It just didn't make it easy. So I think about Paul, in the New Testament, when he was put in prison in Rome for 2 years, and he was still doing God's will, and he trusted in God and all that, and still prison cannot be a piece of cake, right? So I still sing his praises. I still pray. I still know that he's here with me. It just doesn't make it easy. It makes it easier, but it doesn't make it easy. So I hope that that will encourage someone who's maybe going through something. I don't know who I'm talking to out there, but there's got to be somebody out there that understands what I'm saying, that you still go through struggles because we're human, and we still are trusting God, and we still have faith. It's just difficult. So there have been people, my sisters especially, thank you guys for listening to me and talking me through. That month was really hard. But after that, I was doing my Lent Bible study on March 23rd, and I wrote down a couple things, because one thing, it asked a question, and this was on my YouVersion app. I don't know if you guys have that yet or not, but on my phone I downloaded the YouVersion app, and it's the Bible, and it gives you every translation, I think, that there is out there. So I do the Holman Christian Standard version, but you can do whichever one you prefer. And sometimes I compare them, because words don't always translate exactly from Hebrew or Greek into English. like the word love. I think I've used that as an example before. We only have one word for love. We love pizza and we love, each other. And in the original language, there's like 7 words for love. So loving pizza would be one, and loving your brother or sister would be one, and loving your spouse would be a different one. Like, they're all different kinds of love. And loving God, that's agape love. I know that one. But they're all different. And so, but in our language, we just say love. So looking at comparing the different versions is important, because you can sometimes get a little bit more out of it to see like what exactly it's saying. But what this one said was, would you rather stay unresponsive because you like to feel secure? And I don't want to stay unresponsive just because I want to feel secure. So yes, going home to Kansas and to everything that's familiar would have been feeling more secure, but I don't want to be unresponsive to God. So that was just a really, really great timing. Of course, God knew that. And then the prayer that it had was also really good. So I'm going to read that to you guys. This is straight out of the YouVersion app. It's not my prayer, although I pray it. I didn't write it originally. But it says, please give me the courage to look beyond, to see your direction for my life. Help me to be bold enough to break through the circumstances of my life, to reach forward to your plans for my future. And I really like that. I'm going to read it one more time because I know some of you write stuff down. So if you're trying to write it, to keep up with me, and you can always hit pause if you need to, but please give me the courage to look beyond, to see your direction for my life. Help me to be bold enough to break through the circumstances of my life, to reach forward to your plans for my future. And you guys know how I love hearing my words too. And when I circled forward, of course, because I just feel like when he's using my words, I pick YouTube sermons, and I'll pray first and ask him to show me which ones, or like on the YouVersion app, you can pick what Bible study you want to do, and there's a bunch of them for Lent. And so I pray and ask him which one. And so when it's something like this that really speaks directly to me and uses my words, I feel like, he really directed me to that specific one for a reason. And it's just a way that he talks to me. So I just really like that. And then that same day, I did a couple of sermons from T.D. Jakes. And one was Obedience, and one was The Crushing. And I only wrote down just a little bit out of Obedience, but he used the term El Shaddai, which means God is more than enough. And in order to get what God is about to give you, you're going to need partnerships, strategic alliances. You can't do it normally. You need a network. And that he was talking about having a team of 4 or 5 women, and that comes back later to something that it ties to. So I'm glad that I wrote that down, because it ties identically with something that comes along later. And then he talks about the crushing. He said, God keeps calling. It's not a one-time call. And that was really true for me. As I was getting called to Arizona, it was over and over and over every day in my face, the word move over and over and over, and Arizona. So it's true. It's not just a one-time call. He's not just going to say, hey, do this, and then never say it again. If you're hearing from him, he's going to keep saying it. And Paul in the New Testament says, reach for what's ahead, press towards the mark. And what T.D. Jakes had said is that there's progress in the process. So your steps are ordered. The Bible tells us that. God orders our steps. So as we keep progressing and as we keep taking that next step in faith, there's progress in the process. And God knows what he's doing. And when you say no, like Jonah, remember the story of Jonah and the whale, and God told him to go to Nineveh and share the gospel, and Jonah didn't want to. And so because he didn't want them to be saved, because they were wretched people and he didn't think they deserved to be saved. And so he said no, and he went the other way, and he ended up getting in the belly of a whale, or a big fish, as my granddaughter would say, for 3 days before he finally cried uncle and said, okay, I'll do it, and got vomited up onto the beach. I know that's kind of graphic, but that is really in the Bible. So When we say no, God has to war with us, and God is stronger, and God's going to win, but we delay the process. We delay the process. So I think about Jonah, and I don't know if anyone in Nineveh died during those 3 days before Jonah got there to share the gospel. But what if they had? And what a shame that would be, that, they didn't have that opportunity to hear the word of God before they died. So I think, we can't delay the process. There's people waiting. There's people that need us. There's people that are depending on us saying yes. So don't delay the process. Keep on moving, keep on stepping, keep on growing. And T.D. Jakes said, don't die before you die. And I liked that because, this body is going to die. Our flesh is going to die at some point. And, unless the rapture happens before, well, even then the flesh is going to die because that's not going up. But he says, don't die. Don't let your spiritual body die before your fleshly body dies. You want to keep growing and keep pursuing God. And so don't die before you die. He said, go to a new dimension, because as you grow and as you're in the Word and in prayer and seeking Him out, you will move into the next dimension, and allow God to let you change. Because he said your whole world will shift, but crushing feels like an earthquake. God is big, and when He moves, everything shifts. And that word crushing kind of reminded me of, that's kind of how I felt. I had this heaviness on my chest during the month of March. Just, there were periods of it being lifted, but for a lot of it, I just felt this heaviness inside of, and I know it was God, but he says a shift is coming, so prepare for where you're going instead of where you were, and let go of normal. So we don't have to prepare for where we were, right? We know what that's like. We know what it looks like, and it's safe and it's secure and it's comfortable. But if it isn't where God wants us, then we have to be willing to take that step outside of our comfort zone. And almost always, eventually, He will take you out of your comfort zone. He might not do it immediately, but eventually He will. He doesn't want us to get too comfortable. He wants us to keep growing. He wants us to keep moving and doing what He wants us to do. So, if we're comfortable in His will, then I guess we're always comfortable. But, we're not going to get comfortable in our surroundings and be there, I don't think, for too long before He asks us to do another thing. You might be in the same church, but He's going to have a new thing for you to do, or, take a leadership role, or step back from a leadership role, or something. But He'll ask something of you. And it's because He has a bigger plan, and we can't see it from our vantage point, but we have to always remember. And the important thing is to invite Jesus into your day, early in the day, first thing, because if you invite Him into the day, every day, and keep in close contact with Him throughout the day, it makes it so much easier. And when you wait and you don't invite Him into your day, and you just wait until you're in trouble and then say, oh God, by the way, help me, it just makes life harder. So I think that as we're inviting Him into our day and we're talking to Him throughout the day, it just helps the whole day go better and keeps us more in tune with Him, rather than waiting until we break down to need Him. We just keep that regular maintenance going, and it makes everything better. We do that, with our physical self. We do that with our car. We do that with our house. We keep all that maintenance, so that there's not a bigger problem later. But if we're not doing it with our spiritual self, we're going to have a breakdown at some point. There's going to be a disconnect, and it's going to be difficult. So keep the daily maintenance. Stay in the Word. Stay in prayer. Stay in tune with Him. And so this week, if you haven't subscribed yet, I wish that you would. Please hit the subscribe button. Share this with somebody so that they can subscribe. Because eventually somebody might watch this not at the current date. This is 2022, and I'm not at 100 subscribers yet, so I am still trying to get there. Hopefully in a few years when people are watching this, I'm already there. But for now, I'm not there, so if you could share it, that'd be awesome. And I will see you guys on Thursday. And in the meantime, drop a comment. Let me know what you're doing to stay maintaining your spiritual walk. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.